This is Keys to the Shop, episode number 8, and today we are discussing how to find joy in coffee. Welcome, everybody, to Keys to the Shop. This podcast is all about giving you insights, inspiration, and the tools that you need to grow as a coffee service professional. And I really and truly appreciate you taking the time today to listen. And you know what? Today, especially, I'm feeling inspired and pretty joyful. And it's not just because I had my first cup of coffee in 2 weeks, which is kind of a long story, but it's also because I got to talk with the Sage of Smiles, the Admiral of Affirmation, the Juggernaut of Joy himself, Nathanael May. Nathanael is the Director of Coffee and Green Buyer for Portland Roasting Coffee in Portland, Oregon. He is a certified Q grader, a US Barista Championship head judge, World Barista Championship judge, and a board game enthusiast. And plus, he knows a lot about how to be and how to make other people joyful. So, what more appropriate guest to have on the show today than to discuss this topic? We could all use a little bit more joy in our lives when it comes to working in the business of coffee service. And Nathanael considers the cafe to be perhaps the most important place in the industry for us to display that and to have an anchor of joy running through our work and our service. He's going to give us, in this episode today, insight into the difference between joy and happiness, the way that he finds and spreads joy, and also some suggestions for how you can do the same thing in your workplace. So without further ado, let's just get right to the discussion with Nathanael May on finding joy in coffee. All right, so I'm really excited to have Nathanael May, the Director of Coffee at Portland Roasting Coffee in, of course, Portland, Oregon. Where else? He is here to talk to us about finding joy in coffee. I'm super excited to have you here, Nathanael. Welcome.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
All right. We were talking a little bit before we started recording about you getting back from Guatemala. What was it, Monday?
Tuesday afternoon, yeah.
Oh, my God. So you're kind of a pro at that, though. You're doing all right. You're settled in.
Yeah. It's luckily Central and South America. It's not too much of a time change, and so it's easy to make that transition. It's like traveling to, say, Kentucky and back, because it's just a 2-hour difference.
Something I do all the time, I guess.
Yeah.
So today we're talking about finding joy in coffee. One thing that I know about you is that you're a pretty joyful guy, and you represent yourself and your perspective on life and work, and it has this consistent thread of positivity and gratitude and joyfulness online and in person. I don't think it's too much to say that you're kind of an expert at this thing. So it's going to be really great to hear your thoughts on this. I know you're very well respected in the industry, especially for your perspective and the smiles you put on people's faces. So I think a good place to start out is to define what is joy. Is it like job satisfaction, contentment? Like, what is that?
I think actually the problem that we have with joy is that we conflate joy and happiness too much. I think that when we're unhappy, we think that we don't have joy. And I think that joy as a concept and as an idea is more of a state of mind that transcends moment-to-moment feelings. And I can experience joy in my job and joy in my career, even though, like everybody, I don't have 100% happy days every day. I mean, I have times of frustration and times of struggle, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I don't have joy. And so I think joy is an experience of a deep satisfaction in your life that is more stable than what is going on minute to minute throughout your day.
So it's kind of an anchor that holds you down in a good place while things are just kind of going on around you, the chaos of daily life.
Yeah, and you're still going to get tossed to and fro, even when you have an anchor, but that anchor is going to prevent you from moving too far away from where you're centered.
And I imagine that anchor, the joy, might be different for different people. you kind of have to find your own joy.
Yeah, I would say that is definitely true. I think that as much as I love my job, I think there are a lot of people who would hate my job and would find no joy in it. Just like when I was a barista, I found a lot of joy in serving people, but serving people is not necessarily for everyone. And whatever career or job that you find yourself in, I think that it's important for you to be self-aware enough to know yourself and to say, is this something that I am truly ever going to find joy in, or does the actual work of this job make me like sad?
Well, in that case, you'd probably just want to get out of there as soon as possible and find something that does bring you joy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I guess we'll have to start with the idea that in mind that if you're in a job right now that you're not satisfied with, maybe some of what we're going to talk about is going to help you determine whether that's a right place for you to be. So hopefully they'll get some clarity at the end of this conversation. This idea of joy is, I think, a pretty important one. But what is its role in the workplace? Why is it so important, especially for people who work in retail coffee that have to deal with, a lot of changing environments, customer needs change every day. Why is it really important for people to have joy in the coffee shop?
I think that, especially in a coffee shop, being a joyful employee is what is going to make it easier for you to get out of bed in the morning and go do that job. And I think it is going to make you a more pleasurable and enjoyable coworker to be around. And I think that it will then hopefully spread in your workplace so that other people are experiencing joy as well. And it ends up being a thing that makes your cafe a more appealing place to come. You can tell when you go into a coffee shop if that coffee shop is a joyful place. And it is a place that people enjoy working, even again, when it's not necessarily going super great. Maybe you're having a rush and you're not able to keep up with it. There is a joy in that situation if you are a person of joy and you enjoy that work, where that's going to get you through, even in those tough times.
Exactly. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And every day, it presents a new challenge. And I've certainly been to cafes where it's been done right and it's been done wrong, and it's not a particularly joyful experience. But it has a pretty big impact on the customer's perception of coffee in general, especially when it's a specialty coffee shop. I wonder if you could speak to that, since you work as a director of coffee there in Portland, roasting coffee, and you're really close to the producer end of coffee. And what we do in the cafe, though, has a huge impact on how people perceive what is produced on the farm. What have you found that to be the case?
Oh, yeah. I mean, as the barista, and I have said this a million times, and I say this to every barista that I ever train, as a barista, you're the ambassador of every single person before you. You're the ambassador of the coffee shop that you work in. You're the ambassador of the roaster whose coffee you're using. You are the ambassador of the importer who brought that coffee in, the ambassador of the exporter, the ambassador of the processor, and the ambassador of the farmer. And all of those people have, hopefully, joy in their part of the chain. Most of the producers that I have met are incredibly joyful about their jobs. And again, that transcends the times when the market is down and they aren't getting maybe as much money as they want, but they stay in it because it's a joy to them. As that final step in the chain, you are the connector of all of the people's joy before you to that customer. And if you don't have joy in your job, you're kind of deflating all of the joy that has come before you to make this cup something special.
That's a huge responsibility.
It is, but on the other side of it, you are also the only person in that chain probably who gets to see the joy in the customer's face when they finally drink that coffee. So the producer is joyful and sends off the product of their joy with faith and with hope that the people that are in the next step in the chain are going to care for and be joyful about that product as much as they are. And they never get to see that, or rarely get to see that final, just that moment of somebody drinking coffee and going, oh man, this is incredible. Well, I mean, as the barista, you're experiencing that hopefully on a daily basis, multiple times a day.
Oh man, I love the idea of getting to see the joy of the final product. I never really thought about it that way before in terms of, I've thought about how we need to draw joy from other people's joy that they have. Even if it's a drink we don't like, we can be happy that they are enjoying it. But then when you juxtapose that against the reality that most of the supply chain of coffee doesn't get to see that, it really does make you pretty grateful to be in that position.
Well, it balances out that heavy responsibility, right? Of being the last pair of hands that touches coffee before it goes to the customer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it makes it a little bit more palatable. In the cafe, there's a lot of different roles that you have to play. You're a service worker, right? You serve people. You're a technician as well. You approach equipment, your checklist, your chores that you have to do to maintain the space. Where is the biggest need for joy in the cafe, in your opinion?
I think that is going to change depending on the situation that the cafe finds itself in. I think if it's a slow time and, maybe it's like mid-afternoon and you don't have very many customers, I think that the cashier position, that first touch point for the customer, is a pivotal and crucial area for there to be joy, because it's a low energy time of day. And people are probably going about, their mid-shift tasks of getting things ready for the closers, and they're not really maybe paying as much attention to the customers. And so you've got to have that person that is just ready to serve right there. But then in the middle of a rush, when everyone is just pumping like a machine and the cafe is working smoothly and everything's getting handled, you've got to have that like expediter position person who, when they see syrup run out, or they see, we're out of milk and I need to run back to the fridge, they've got to be that person that is not flustered and isn't upset and doesn't get rattled by that, but is like, yeah, you guys need more milk? Sweet. I'm going to go get you like 100 more gallons of milk. And everyone's like, 100 gallons more milk. That's very funny. But they are almost the ringleader of joy, not just making sure that the bar flow stays flowing, but making sure that people's minds are staying in that positivity. Because I think there is a way, even when things are going sideways during a crazy rush in the morning, for everyone to still be joyful and positive, and for little mishaps, maybe somebody's drink got made incorrectly, or that was supposed to be decaf and I just pulled regular shots. Just a second, it's going to be another minute while I re-pull this espresso. For there to be like a happy joy in that, and for people to be patient and to maybe even find a deeper well of patience because they're joyful.
Right. It sounds like you can start the cycle one way or another if you freak out, if you have a mistake happen on bar and you really take it to heart and you take it bad. It starts that cycle where the customer feels bad and now everybody feels bad. But if you've got that joyful anchor in you, where you're just like, this is just a thing. We're going to get through it. There's nothing you can do about it right now except just make the best of it. And it kind of pulls everybody up and it makes what could be a bad situation a little bit better. And it sounds like each position kind of has to be ready to deploy that joy at different times in their work. If you're out on the floor, if you're at the cash register, which is huge. I'm really glad you said that. Sometimes we put our newest and least confident employees right at the register where the first impression is made. So how have you seen this done well, as an example, in cafes there in Portland, and how have you seen it done poorly?
I would say the best example I have seen of joy in a situation where it didn't seem like that was going to be possible was when I was at Starbucks years and years and years ago. And a woman came into our cafe who we had never seen before. It was just me and my shift supervisor. And she was clearly on the verge of tears. Like she had been crying and was about to cry again. Oh, no. And she ordered 5 or 6 drinks and like 8 pastries, just a ton of stuff. And I said, I was on register. My shift supervisor was on the Verismo 701. And I said, what's going on today? You having a tough day? And looking back, I probably should not have cried like that, but I did. And she said that her brother had just died and that she was going to his funeral, and all of her family, her husband and all of her kids and other people were in the minivan out front of the cafe waiting for her. And my shift supervisor turned to her from the espresso machine and said, you know what? It sounds like you're going through a lot today. Let us take care of your drinks and your pastries. Today, it's on us today.
Nice.
And she just, and then she did cry. She lost it completely and started crying, said, thank you so much, and was just so profusely joyful in that moment of sadness. And it was a moment of sadness. It wasn't like we all started smiling and high-fiving or like, yeah, joy.
Sure.
It was a moment of profound sadness, but it was also a moment of profound joy. And I was so proud of my shift supervisor for not asking me if that was okay, but just doing it, just stepping up and saying, this is the right thing to do to make this situation better. And what ended up happening was that woman, again, who we had never seen before, became a regular customer again and again and again, and brought her family, and we were her people now, and we were special to her, and we were an important part of her day and her life because we brought her joy.
Wow.
I love that story because it is such a great example of not letting a situation that could have been very negative get you down, but finding ways to make those situations better. And that, like, the rest of that day, that was one of the first things that happened that morning. The rest of that day was awesome. We were just living off of the afterglow of that moment.
Right. Wow. That's huge, man. And just the ending there with her becoming a regular customer, just the kind of relationships that coffee shops can facilitate, especially when we treat people right and we have service and hospitality and doing it well on the top of our mind. So I'm sure the supervisor wouldn't have thought about it unless you geared to think that way already.
Right.
So
yeah, she was already a joyful person, and she was already just a shining star in our cafe. So I wasn't surprised that that's what she did, because it was in character for her to be like that. Awesome. And I think that it would be easy to take from that a very pragmatic lesson that if you give people stuff for free, you will reap financial rewards by making them a regular customer. But that wasn't ever the impetus or the motivation for her doing that. We would have done that, and she would have done that even if we never saw that woman again, because it was the right thing to do.
Even if it was a sacrifice on her part to, we gave away money today, but it was for a good cause. And she was empowered to do that too.
Yeah.
That I'm sure that was something that was part of the culture as well.
Yeah. I mean, Starbucks culture is just say yes, which empowers you to be a more joyful employee because you know that you can fix whatever problem is in front of you.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good lesson, especially for those of us who are in positions of influence or authority, to facilitate and help facilitate those who are responsible for to have moments of joy and have the power to change people's lives that way, rather than following the rules and being worried about giving a pastry away or comping a drink or something like that. So in terms of the service of a cafe, when you walk into a coffee bar, there are people who work in a coffee service setting who aren't joyful. I wonder how much of that is self-inflicted. Some of it obviously is not. So there's stuff going on, but we always have to start with us, because that's the first thing that we can change. And I wonder what you think. How do we rob ourselves of joy, and then how do we rob others of joy too? It kind of follows. So how do we rob ourselves of joy, and how do we rob others of joy?
I think that I think it ties back to that connection that we inappropriately make between happiness and joy, that I can't have joy if I don't have happiness. And so when I am unhappy, I allow that to grow into something that not only makes me unhappy, but robs me of that ability to be joyful. And I think that is strongly impacted by our interactions with other people. I think if somebody's in a bad mood, and maybe, I know not everybody is like this, but if somebody around me is in a bad mood, it tends to rub off on me, and I tend to not necessarily get into a bad mood, but become more sullen and more quiet. Mm-hmm. And I allow myself to not be the person that I am, and not be the influence that I can be in a room or in an office or in a cafe, by allowing other people's moods to impact mine. And I think that we rob other people of joy a lot when we don't allow people to serve us. I think that it's hard for people. I think that we are prideful, proud people. I think we don't want to ask for help. I think we don't want to be perceived as people who need help. And I think that not accepting help from other people, not accepting service from other people, is a disservice to that person. If that person that wants to help you has been blessed enough to have the means to help you in this situation, you are preventing them from doing a good thing for themselves and for you by not allowing them to serve you. So I don't know if it comes from the kind of American ideals that are pounded into us from our youth, that, you pick yourself up by your bootstraps and you do it yourself, and you do it and you build it and you grow it. And that makes us perceive accepting help as weakness. But I think it takes a strength of character and a deep inner joy to be able to humbly allow somebody to serve you. And we all know, those of us who choose to be in the service industry because we love serving people, we know that serving people brings us joy. Mm. And so allowing other people to serve us brings that person joy. Like, let that person have the joy in their life of seeing you be satisfied by something that they did for you.
Finding joy in letting people find joy in serving you. And
yeah, it's like the inception of joy. You've got to go deeper.
Nice. Well, how do you do it? What does it look like for you in those moments where you practice allowing people to serve you, or being joyful and infecting other people with joy? What does that look like for you?
For me, I think the hardest thing, and it's such a simple thing too, and I don't think that I'm unique in this, but I have a really hard time accepting compliments. I have a really hard time allowing people to say something nice about me, because, again, I perceive it as a pride thing, and I don't want to be a prideful person. And so when somebody says, "Oh, hey, that was really great. That was really cool what you did," I always like, "Oh no, don't say that." And I downplay it. And I know from experience on the other side, when I give somebody a compliment and they don't take it, I feel bad. Like, I'm like, "Oh, okay, well, I'm sorry that I said that, and I made you feel bad for the nice thing that I said about you."
Right.
And so it seems like it would stand to reason that I should be better at accepting compliments, or better at allowing people to offer their help to me, but I'm terrible at it. And that is something that I daily need to work on. The thing that I do to try and infect other people with joy around me is I come in super early. Like this morning, I came in super early to work to receive some green coffee. We have green coffee deliveries at 6 a.m. 2 or 3 times a month. And when I come in at 6 a.m. 2 or 3 times a month, I spend at least an hour writing emails to coworkers, just telling them how much I like them, how much I appreciate them, and what a great job I think that they're doing. And I try and do it with different people on a regular basis so that it doesn't become like, oh, Nathanael came in early, I got my, happy email.
Yeah.
But I try and make that a habit so that it's other people know that I'm happy about them. Other people know that I appreciate them, and their day is made better by that. And as much as I do that, you would think that I would be better at receiving things like that, and I'm still terrible at it.
That's a really cool thing that you do for your coworkers. That's awesome. That's a intentional and a forward thinking thing that I think we would all stand to do well. Just a nice note. It's always nice to get an unexpected compliment, and even if it's expected, it's not like, ew, a compliment, or at least, I'm with you, and sometimes I can't receive a compliment very well, and that's a thing that I've got to figure out on my end. Nurture or nature, I don't know where it came from, but I would imagine you probably work with a lot of people that share a similar mindset, or at least it's kind of part of the culture there.
I definitely try and surround myself with people who are joyful. So I don't have complete hiring control at Portland Roasting, but I have hired several people here. And one of the things that I am seeking most often in that hiring process is somebody who is just a naturally positive and joyful person, because I'm going to want to be around that person, and I am going to look forward to coming to work with them. And right now, this minute at Portland Roasting, my desk is surrounded by other people who I absolutely adore working with, and the kind of people who I am genuinely sad when they call in sick. And that's who you want to work with. You want to work with people that if they call in sick, you're not relieved. You're like, what am I going to do today? Where am I going to find my source of joy? That person's gone.
Oh, that's sweet. We've talked a lot about defining joy separate from happiness. It's an anchor in ourselves that lets us be stable, and in the midst of chaos, we've got the ability to give joy to other people, and we've got to give them the ability to give us joy too, and receive joy. I wonder if there are some steps, some things that we can do practically if we're listening to you talk about these things, thinking this is something I want in my career. I want to feel joyful tomorrow when I go into work. How can we start working at that? What are some things that we can do practically speaking, like tomorrow, to start finding joy at work in the shop?
I think that we can, for one, and this is something that I try and think about regularly, we can enjoy the fact that we can taste coffee. So we're all in our cafes drinking coffee, and however you think modern humanity came about, whether there was divine intervention or not, we all can agree that we have a completely and incredibly unnecessary ability to receive pleasure from a variety of flavors. We don't need to receive pleasure from a variety of flavors, but we have noses and palates that can enjoy coffee. We can enjoy this black liquid in a tremendously detailed and granular way. And that is joyful to me. Like I get to taste this, and I can taste strawberries, and I can taste caramel, and I can taste oranges. And why if not just for my life to be filled with joy? So one thing we can do is just taste coffee and appreciate the fact that we are not just We don't just have the ability to taste things that are dangerous to us or safe, but we have the ability to taste things that we enjoy. One of the things that I have tried to do, both as a barista and in all of my work in coffee, is make a plan every morning. Okay, I can't do everything. I can't make everybody's day awesome, but at some point today, I'm going to be presented with the opportunity to make one customer's day absolutely extraordinary. And if I can do that, if I can bring that person joy, that's going to give me some level of satisfaction in my day, and it is going to make their day awesome. And so that doesn't just mean somebody's going to get their drink for free today, but it means that there's probably something I can do. I can open the door for somebody who's struggling, or I can offer somebody who seems interested in tasting coffee, hey, you know what? I'm brewing up 3 or 4 other coffees here. Do you want to taste them today? Like this morning, we have French Press Friday, every Friday, where we invite all of the production staff and office staff to come in and just taste some coffees that we put on French press. And we had a customer in the cafe who was just sitting there on his laptop, enjoying working, I guess. And we had a moment in the training room where we didn't have anyone drinking coffee from our French presses. And I was like, you know what? Let's see if that guy out on his laptop wants to just come taste these extraordinary Colombias from Nariño that we just got in. And so I went out there and was like, hey guy, hey you. We've got some really cool coffees in here, and you're going to have to come back into the employee area, but we would love for you to get a chance to try them. And his eyes lit up, and he was so stoked that he was getting let into like behind the curtain and to see the great and powerful Oz, yes, and see what we do as coffee professionals. And, you know, we just drink coffee. So he got to taste these 2 really excellent coffees a month before we released them, and he was stoked. And so I might not do anything else today that's worthwhile, but I made that guy's day great. And so I feel really good about that. And that's bringing me joy. And then I think lastly, just doing that genuine compliment, offering one of your coworkers an actual, genuine, meaningful compliment in a moment when they need it. I think that is going to infect them with your joy, and, you know, who knows, maybe they'll pay it forward to somebody else, maybe not, but you did a good thing and they received it, and that's something.
That's awesome. And that ties right in, like finding joy in offering joy to somebody else seems like the key. It's like a virtuous cycle that just allows us to maintain a steady state of joy throughout the day if we're always looking to initiate those things. I think, I wonder if you could speak to the importance of being the initiator of that process versus being the one to wait for it to come to you.
Well, I think it goes back to what you said earlier, like who's the only person that you can control? It's yourself. And so if you're waiting for somebody else to bring you joy, you might wait forever. But if you are the person who says, I don't feel great, but I can maybe make that person feel great, and you just start that cycle, you are helping yourself and you are helping that other person. And I'll tell you, it's like, I went into marriage thinking that love was going to be a feeling that I felt all the time. I could not imagine a moment where I would not just be head over heels for my wife. And then very quickly, much more quickly than I expected, I learned that that's not always going to be the case. And living with a person, you stop feeling love more rapidly than maybe you expect. And then you learn the much more important lesson that love is something that you do even when you don't feel quote unquote love. But it is in the doing of that love that those feelings of love are constantly rekindled and that fire is stoked. And so it is maybe the most important on the mornings that you wake up and the last thing you want to do is serve another human being coffee. It is in those moments that you expressing the action of joy to your customers and to your coworkers will, in the action of it, rekindle those feelings of joy that we see as happiness.
That's amazing. That's a great way to end our discussion today on joy. I think that's just such an apt metaphor that you just used. And I can certainly attest to it myself. So, Nathanael, thanks so much for sharing all of this with us. I have personally got a lot out of listening to you kind of wax poetic about joy. This has been really fun to discuss it with you. Where can people find you online? How can they reach out to you?
I almost never turn down friend requests on Facebook. I am at Nathanael on Instagram and Twitter. And if people ask for my phone number, I usually give it.
Nice. Well, thanks again for all that you shared with us. And I hope you just have an amazing weekend, man.
And I will do my best.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right. That was a great discussion, I thought, just on the subject of joy with Nathanael, just really packed with a lot of great advice. And I love the stories that he shared as well. And ultimately, the key thing here, I think, is it is up to us to initiate the process of finding, giving, and receiving joy. If you're a leader, you can empower others to make someone else's day better by giving them the freedom to make those decisions when the moment arises. Just like Nathaniel's manager at Starbucks back in the day was empowered. She knew that she could make that decision in the moment to give away pastries and coffee because it would make a customer's day. And you too, if you have that power to do that, you can infuse your cafe with the kind of culture that says, we're looking out for opportunities to make somebody's day. And you as a barista or you as a manager are empowered to make those decisions. And you could create a lifelong customer, like was the case in that story. So we can also find joy by practicing perspective. We who work in coffee service, baristas, people who serve coffee, we get to see others enjoying the work of thousands of hands that made coffee possible every day. And that is a true honor and a privilege that most people don't get to see that. They don't get to see the customer enjoying the coffee. So as a barista or, working professionally in coffee service, that is an honorable position to be in. And that really should generate that kind of gratitude that inspires joy in your position. We can also take time to plan out specific acts of affirmation and encouragement for others, like Nathanael does with writing thoughtful emails to his colleagues. I thought that was really cool. You can enter each day and plan out, who you're going to work with or who you might see. You can plan out some specific things to do to make somebody else's day better, to inspire joy in somebody else. And the cool thing is here that you receive joy from that. So it's this cycle, this virtuous cycle of joy where you give it, you receive it, you give it, you receive it, and it just keeps on. Everyone just keeps being more joyful. It's so great. So it starts, though, with us making the choice every day to just take the first step and be joyful. Even when things are hard, we describe the difference between happiness and joyfulness is that happiness is sort of this fleeting feeling that comes and it goes. Joyfulness is our perspective on life, and it is this common thread of our perspective towards each situation that we have ultimately the ability to decide, am I going to look at this in a positive and joyful way, or am I going to let this chaos just overwhelm me? And determine the way that I approach life. So finding joy in coffee to help you thrive in the cafe is found in the doing of it. Every day, make a decision. Look out for it. Keep it on the top of your mind. Like Ryan Soder in episode 2 talked about how workflow, one of the first steps is to think about workflow all the time. And you'll start to see areas where you can improve your workflow. I think joyfulness is just like that. You can enter each day and have the idea in your head, how can I be more joyful? How can I make someone's day? And you'll be surprised at how many things come up that you didn't see before just because you're focusing on it. and it kind of reveals itself daily. And after a while, there's this momentum, and you start to feel better. You start to be more satisfied with where you are, more grateful, and ta-da, you're joyful. It's great. So thanks again to Nathanael for your encouragement and your insights on this subject. I think it's tremendously helpful for everybody. So thanks again. The show notes are available now on the website, keystotheshop.com, under the resources tab, where you can just click on the banner of today's episode right at the top there and download the PDF of the main points and key takeaways from today's episode on joy, and all the other past episodes as well. There's a link to that on the descriptions here on iTunes. So I hope you all get a lot of opportunities this week to practice joyfulness. Be on the lookout for that, and that today's episode was helpful to you. So go out there and find joy for yourself and give it to others. And remember to always keep being inspired by and find joy in people and coffee, because they are the keys to the shop.